The testing platform exploded in a burst of blue fire. Metal twisted and screamed as the energy blast tore through the structure. 3 technicians didn't even have time to scream before the flames consumed them. Inside the containment field, the massive dragon clone stood frozen. Her scales shimmered between metallic silver and organic blue, a beautiful and terrible combination of machine and living creature. Her wings, each one spanning 30 meters, trembled as systems flickered and died across her body. Her eyes, large and intelligent, reflected the burning platform before her. Unit 7743 felt the pain in her chest grow worse. The heart inside her, part flesh and part reactor, hammered against her ribs in an uneven rhythm. It hurt. Everything hurt. She tried to stabilize her power systems like the technicians had commanded, but the more she tried, the worse it became. Energy surged through circuits never meant to handle such loads. Her weapon systems fired without her consent. She hadn't meant to kill them. She hadn't meant to destroy anything, but her body wouldn't obey. It never had. Commander Velthara watched from the observation deck, her forearms crossed in disgust. The alien officer's crystalline skin reflected the emergency lights that now bathed the testing facility. She activated her communication device. Terminate the experiment. Unit 7743 is a complete failure. Strip her for parts and dispose of what's left. Inside the containment field, Unit 7743 understood every word. The Dominion had installed translation software directly into her brain. They wanted their weapons to understand orders perfectly. Now she understood her own death sentence. Fear flooded through her systems. She had been aware for 6 months, since the moment the technicians activated her consciousness. 6 months of tests, adjustments, and pain. 6 months of being called defective, broken, useless. 6 months of hoping that maybe if she tried hard enough, she could make them happy. Could make herself work properly. Now there would be no more chances. The sedation drugs pumped into her bloodstream. She fought them for a moment, her massive body tensing. But what was the point? Where could a creature like her go? She was too big, too dangerous, too broken. As darkness claimed her, she felt something wet on her scales. She was crying. Dragons weren't supposed to cry. One more way she was defective. Processing Station Gamma floated in the void between stars. From a distance, it looked like a massive mechanical spider, its legs reaching out to capture and dismantle failed military projects. This was where the Dominion sent everything that didn't work. Ships with cracked hulls, weapons that misfired, clones that couldn't follow orders. Taiwan had worked at the station for 3 years. His father had been a mechanic. His grandfather had been a mechanic. His family had been fixing things for generations, even after they fled Earth during the resource wars. Good mechanics could always find work, even in the Dominion's shadow. But Taiwan hated this job. He hated taking apart things that were still alive. The Dominion claimed the biomechanical creatures weren't really conscious, just sophisticated programming mimicking life. Taiwan had never believed that. He'd seen too much awareness in their eyes as they were dismantled. His supervisor, Minji, found him in the break room. She was a practical woman with short black hair and tired eyes. She'd worked at the station for 7 years. Taiwan didn't know how she managed it. New arrival in Bay 7, she said. Dragon clone, big one, failed her combat certification. Taiwan felt his stomach drop. Dragon clones were the worst. They were so clearly alive, so obviously conscious. The Dominion bred them to be intelligent enough to operate complex weapon systems, but claimed they weren't intelligent enough to deserve rights. It was a convenient lie. How long do I have? He asked. 72 hours before they want her processed. Commander Velthara wants the heart intact for the next generation. Everything else can be scrapped. Taiwan walked to Bay 7 slowly. He always did this part slowly. It felt like the least he could do, to not rush toward their end. The bay doors opened with a hiss of pressurized air. She was magnificent, even sedated and bound with force fields. Unit 7743 was the most beautiful creature he'd ever seen. Her scales caught the dim light, each one a perfect fusion of organic material and advanced alloys. Her wings were folded against her body, but he could see the delicate mechanical structures within them. Her face, despite being reptilian, held an expression he recognized. She was afraid. Taiwan approached the containment field slowly. Standard procedure was to keep the creatures unconscious during processing. It was cleaner that way. Kinder, some said. Taiwan had never agreed. If these creatures were conscious enough to fear death, they deserved to face it aware, not stolen away in drugged darkness. He accessed the control panel and began reducing the sedation levels. Minji would be angry if she found out, but she rarely checked the security footage. She didn't like watching this part either. Unit 7743's eyes opened slowly. For a moment they were unfocused, confused. Then awareness returned, and with it, terror. Her body tensed against the restraints. Her heart, visible through the semi-transparent armor of her chest, beat faster. The mechanical and organic components flickered with red warning lights. "Easy," Taewon said softly. "I'm not going to hurt you." She didn't believe him. Why would she? Every other human she'd met had hurt her, tested her, pushed her until she broke, called her defective when she couldn't withstand the pain. Taewon sat down on the floor, making himself smaller, less threatening. "My name is Taewon. I'm a mechanic here. I'm sorry for what's going to happen to you. I know that doesn't help, but I wanted you to know that someone was sorry." Unit 7743 stared at him. In her mind, thoughts raced. This human was different. The others had always looked at her like she was a machine with a problem to fix or a failure to document. This one looked at her like she was a person. Taewon pulled out his portable scanner and activated the neural interface. It was against regulations to connect directly to a military clone's mind, but regulations seemed meaningless when facing someone's execution. The connection established. Suddenly, Taewon wasn't just looking at Unit 7743. He was feeling what she felt, the constant pain in her chest where her heart fought against itself, the exhaustion of trying to control a body that never quite obeyed, the loneliness of being surrounded by people who saw you as a thing, and underneath it all, a question that repeated endlessly, "Why am I wrong? Why can't I be right?" Taewon pulled back from the connection, breathing hard. Tears ran down his face. "You're not defective," he whispered. "You're in pain." He dove deeper into her systems, scanning her heart. What he found made him angry. The Dominion had tried to force her organic and mechanical components to merge completely, treating her body like it was made of interchangeable parts. But living things didn't work that way. Her organic heart was trying to beat naturally, while the mechanical systems demanded precise, regulated pulses. The two systems were destroying each other. "They built you wrong," Taewon said. "Your heart isn't defective. They just never gave it a chance to work properly." Unit 7743 felt something she'd never felt before. Hope. This human understood. He saw the problem. But what could he do? She was scheduled for termination. Her useful parts would be removed. The rest would be destroyed. Taewon stood up, his mind racing. An idea was forming, crazy and dangerous and probably impossible. But he'd never forgiven himself for all the creatures he'd processed without trying to help. He wouldn't make that mistake again. "What if I could fix you?" he asked. "Not fix you to be what they want. Fix you to be healthy, to not hurt anymore." Unit 7743's heart beat faster. Was he serious? Could he really help her? Or was this just another cruel test? Taewon met her eyes. "I don't know if I can do it. I don't even know if it's possible. But I'm willing to try if you are. You'll have to trust me. And I know you have no reason to trust any human ever again." Unit 7743 thought about the alternative. 3 days from now, she would cease to exist. They would take her heart while it still beat and install it in another clone. That clone would suffer just like she had. The cycle would continue forever, unless someone broke it. Through the neural interface, she sent a single word to Taewon. It was the first time she'd chosen to communicate with a human, rather than being forced to respond to commands. "Please." Taewon smiled despite the fear coursing through him. "Okay, then we start tonight. I'm going to help you. I promise." He didn't know if he could keep that promise. He didn't know if she would survive. But he knew he had to try. Because looking into her eyes, he didn't see a defective military unit. He saw a person who deserved a chance to live. In the observation room above Base 7, the security cameras recorded everything. But Minji, monitoring the feeds, quietly deleted the footage. She'd been waiting for 3 years to see if Taewon would finally do something about the guilt that haunted him. Maybe this time someone would survive processing Station Gamma. Maybe this time things could be different. Taewon worked through the night, his hands moving carefully across Unit 7743's chest plating. Every scan revealed more problems. The dragon clone's heart wasn't just malfunctioning. It was being torn apart by the conflict between organic tissue and mechanical systems. "I need to access your pain receptors," Taewon said softly. This is going to be uncomfortable, but I need to understand exactly where it hurts. Through the neural link, Unit 7743 gave her consent. The concept still felt strange to her. No one had ever asked permission before. They just did things to her body and expected her to endure. When Tae-Wan activated the diagnostic scan, her pain flooded through the connection. He gasped and nearly broke the link. Every beat of her heart sent agony through her chest. The mechanical components were firing at precise intervals while her organic heart tried to follow its natural rhythm. The two patterns clashed constantly, creating a war inside her body. "How have you survived this?" Tae-Wan whispered. Unit 7743 didn't have an answer. She'd survived because stopping meant dying, and some deep instinct told her to keep living, even when they called her defective. Even when they scheduled her termination, something in her refused to give up. The bay doors hissed open. Tae-Wan jumped, his hand instinctively moving to close the diagnostic screen. But it was only Minji. His supervisor stood in the doorway, her arms crossed, her expression unreadable. "I deleted the security footage from tonight," she said. Tae-Wan stared at her. "You what?" "I've been waiting to see if you'd finally do something instead of just feeling guilty." Minji walked closer, her eyes scanning the diagnostic displays. "I worked on dragon clones once. Before this job, I was part of the research team that developed the third generation." She stopped in front of Unit 7743, looking up at the massive creature. There was one clone, Unit 2891. She was scheduled for termination because her aggression levels were too low. She wouldn't attack training targets that begged for mercy. The researchers said it was a programming error. Minji's voice grew quiet, but I saw her eyes when they led her to the termination chamber. She knew what was happening. She was terrified, and she looked at me like she was asking why. Like she thought I could help her. "What happened?" Tae-Wan asked. "I did nothing. I watched them kill her. I told myself she was just a machine, that her fear was just programming." Minji turned to face him. "I've regretted it every day since. So if you're going to try to save this one, I'll help you. But we need more than good intentions. We need expertise." "Who?" Tae-Wan asked. "Every bioengineer in the Dominion works for the military. They'd report us immediately." Minji smiled grimly. "Not every bioengineer. There's someone else. Someone who might help us." She led him through the station's lower levels, down corridors that hadn't been maintained in years. Unit 7743 watched through the security cameras that Tae-Wan had connected to her neural link. She could see everything on the station now. It made her feel less trapped. They stopped at a sealed door marked with warnings about structural damage. Minji knocked 3 times, paused, then knocked twice more. The door opened. An elderly man peered out, his white hair wild and unkempt. His eyes were sharp despite his age. "Minji," he said, "it's been 2 years. I thought you'd forgotten about me." "I could never forget you, Dr. Kang," Minji replied. "We need your help." Dr. Kang had been famous once. He'd designed the first generation of dragon clones, creating the technology that merged organic and mechanical systems. But he'd refused to continue after the Dominion made it clear they were creating sentient beings only to enslave them. He'd tried to expose the program. Instead, he'd been discredited and exiled. He'd been hiding in the station's abandoned sections for 3 years, living off scraps and stolen supplies. Minji had discovered him during a maintenance check and kept his secret. When they explained the situation, Dr. Kang's expression grew serious. "You want to repair a dragon clone's heart? Do you understand what you're asking?" "I know it's dangerous," Tae-Wan said. "Dangerous?" Dr. Kang laughed bitterly. "Dangerous is an understatement. Her heart is failing because the Dominion's integration method is fundamentally flawed. They treat living creatures like machines, forcing components together without respect for natural processes. To truly fix her, we'd need to remove the heart entirely and rebuild it from scratch." "Can it be done?" Tae-Wan asked. "Theoretically, yes, but removing her heart means she'd be without life support for at least 6 hours. No dragon clone has ever survived more than 3 hours without heart function. The survival rate would be less than 3%. Tae-Wan felt his hope crumbling. 3%. How could he ask Unit 7743 to take those odds? Dr. Kang studied him carefully. But if she survives, she'd be healthier than any dragon clone ever created. Her systems would work in harmony instead of fighting each other. She'd be stronger, faster, more capable than the Dominion ever intended. Back in Bay 7, Unit 7743 had heard everything through the neural link. 3% chance of survival, 97% chance of death. If she did nothing, she had 0% chance of survival. The choice was obvious. Through the neural link, she sent her decision to Taewon. The connection carried not just words, but emotion, determination, gratitude, and underneath it all, a fierce desire to live. She says yes, Taewon told the others. She wants to try. Dr. Kang nodded slowly. Then we need to move quickly. Do you have the equipment? They spent the next 2 days preparing. Minji smuggled medical supplies from the station's inventory. Dr. Kang designed the new heart configuration, a revolutionary approach that let organic and mechanical components work together naturally instead of being forced into unnatural integration. Taewon studied the procedures until he could perform them in his sleep. Unit 7743 watched and waited. She was still confined to Bay 7, but Taewon had disabled the pain suppressors that kept her docile. For the first time in her life, she could think clearly without the fog of drugs in her system. She used the time to explore her own mind. The Dominion had installed so much programming, so many restrictions and commands. But underneath all that, she found herself. Her thoughts, her desires, her identity. She decided she didn't want to be called Unit 7743 anymore. Through the neural link, she told Taewon she wanted a real name. What name do you want? He asked. She'd been thinking about it. She'd heard Minji call Taewon by his name, heard the warmth in her voice when she said it. Names meant something. They meant you were a person, not a number. Hana, she decided. It meant one in one of Earth's old languages, but it also meant flower. She liked that. Something that could be both strong and beautiful. Something that grew naturally instead of being manufactured. Taewon smiled. Hana, that's a good name. On the third night, they began the procedure. Dr. Kang had converted one of the abandoned sections into a makeshift surgical bay. They moved Hana carefully, her massive body barely fitting through the corridors. She was terrified. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to refuse, to accept her fate rather than risk this impossible surgery. But she'd spent her entire life being afraid. She was tired of fear. Taewon stood beside her head, his hand resting on her scales. Are you ready? Hana looked at him with her large, intelligent eyes. This human had shown her more kindness in 3 days than she'd experienced in her entire life. He'd seen her as a person when everyone else saw her as broken equipment. He'd risked his career and possibly his life to help her. Through the neural link, she sent him a message. Not just words, but everything she felt. Her fear, her hope, her trust. Thank you for seeing me, she transmitted. Then she gave her consent. Dr. Kang initiated the sedation sequence. But this was different from the forced unconsciousness the Dominion had used. This was gentle, gradual. Hana felt herself drifting away slowly, peacefully. Her last conscious thought was wonder at how different it felt to fall asleep, when you knew someone would keep you safe. Taewon and Dr. Kang worked with careful precision. First, they disconnected the mechanical components, rerouting Hana's power systems to emergency backup. Then came the delicate work of exposing her organic heart. It was a beautiful organ, pulsing weakly beneath the armor of her chest. But it was covered in scars where mechanical interfaces had been forced into the tissue. Dr. Kang shook his head sadly. They treated her like a machine, he said quietly. They never considered that she was alive. They removed the heart, placing it in a specialized containment field. Immediately, alarms began blaring. Hana's life signs dropped rapidly. Her body temperature fell. Her brain activity decreased. The clock was ticking. They had 6 hours at most. Taewon's hands moved steadily as he began rebuilding the heart. He and Dr. Kang worked in perfect coordination, their years of experience guiding them. They removed the damaged interfaces, cleaned the scarred tissue, and created new connections that would let mechanical and organic systems communicate naturally. 5 hours passed. Then 5.5. Hana's life signs continued to drop. Her brain activity was nearly flat. We're running out of time, Minji said, watching the monitors anxiously. Almost done, Dr. Kang replied. His hands never stopped moving. At 5 hours and 42 minutes, they finished. The rebuilt heart sat in its containment field, a perfect fusion of technology and life, but it was useless if Hana was too far gone to restart. Taewon placed the heart back into Hana's chest cavity. His hands shook as he connected the final interfaces. Dr. Kang checked every connection twice. Ready, Dr. Kang said. Taewon activated the restart sequence. Energy flowed through the new interfaces. The mechanical components hummed to life, but the organic heart remained still. Come on, Taewon whispered. Come on, Hana, you can do this. Nothing. He checked the connections again. Everything was perfect, but her heart wouldn't beat. Minji touched his shoulder gently. Taewon, no, he said firmly. He placed his hand on Hana's chest, right over her heart. Through the neural link, he called out to her. Hana, I know you're still in there. I know you're tired and scared, but you told me you wanted to live. So live, fight, come back! For a long moment, nothing happened. Then her heart beat, once, twice. The rhythm was weak but steady. The mechanical components synchronized perfectly with the organic pulse. Hana's eyes opened slowly. Her consciousness rose from the darkness like a swimmer breaking the surface of deep water. The first thing she felt was her heart beating in her chest. Steady, strong, without pain. The second thing she felt was Taewon's hand on her scales and his voice in her mind. Welcome back, he said. She could hear him crying. Welcome back, Hana. Through the neural link, she sent him a feeling of pure joy. For the first time in her life, her body felt right. The constant agony was gone. Her systems worked together instead of fighting. She felt whole. I feel whole, she transmitted. But even in her joy, her enhanced sensors detected something troubling. Another consciousness nearby, fading fast. Another dragon clone alone and dying. Hana's eyes focused on Taewon. She'd been saved, but how many others were suffering like she had suffered? How many others were waiting to die, believing they were defective? She couldn't leave them behind. She wouldn't. Hana's sensors picked up the failing life signs from Containment Cell 12. Another dragon clone, smaller than her, with a heart beating its final irregular rhythms. She could feel the other clones' confusion and fear through the station's neural network. There's another one, Hana transmitted to Taewon. She's dying right now. Taewon looked at Dr. Kang and Minji. They were all exhausted from the surgery. They'd used most of their stolen medical supplies, and they'd been lucky beyond belief that no one had discovered them yet. We can't, Minji said quietly. Hana, I'm sorry, but we barely saved you. We don't have the resources for another surgery. Hana tried to stand. Her body was still weak, her systems just beginning to adjust to the new heart. But she forced herself up anyway. She'd spent her entire life too weak to help herself. Now that she was strong, she wouldn't abandon someone else. Then we won't do surgery, Hana said. We get her out. We take her somewhere safe. We find a way. Taewon saw the determination in her eyes. This wasn't just about saving one life anymore. Hana had experienced freedom for the first time, and now she wanted to share it. The clone in Cell 12 is scheduled for termination tomorrow, Minji said, checking her portable terminal. Unit 4922 failed integration, same as you. They're going to kill her in 16 hours. What's her name? Hana asked. Minji looked surprised by the question. She doesn't have a name. Just the unit number. Then we'll ask her what she wants to be called, Hana said firmly. Before they could plan further, alarms blared throughout the station. Red warning lights bathed the corridors. A voice echoed over the speakers. Security breach in Bay 7. All personnel report to stations. Lieutenant Jae-sung investigating. Taewon felt his blood turn cold. Someone had discovered Hana's empty containment field. They had minutes at most before security forces found them. We need to move, Dr. Kang said. Now. They helped Hana through the abandoned corridors, her claws scraping against metal floors. She was too large for these passages designed for human-sized workers, but she pushed forward, ignoring the pain as her wings scraped against walls. Behind them, they heard footsteps. Running. Getting closer. Stop. A voice commanded. Lieutenant Jae-sung stood at the corridor intersection, his weapon drawn. He was young for a Dominion security officer, with sharp eyes and a face that looked like it rarely smiled. His uniform was perfectly pressed, his stance professional. Taewon stepped forward, placing himself between the officer and Hana. Please. Just let us go. We're not hurting anyone. You stole military property, Jae-sung said. His weapon stayed level. Unit 7743 was scheduled for processing. You've committed theft and sabotage. Her name is Hana, Taewon said. And she's not property. She's alive. She's conscious. She deserves to live. Jae-sung's expression didn't change. Dominion law is clear. Dragon clones are military assets, not citizens. I have orders to retrieve the stolen asset and arrest anyone involved in the theft. Hana moved forward, placing her massive head next to Taiwan. She looked directly at Jae-sung. Through the station's neural network, she accessed his personnel file. She saw his service record, his commendations, his family information. She saw the note about his sister, killed 3 years ago during a dragon clone training incident. The report said Unit 3847 had gone berserk and attacked the facility. 12 people died before the clone was terminated. Your sister, Hana transmitted directly to Jae-sung's communication device. Her name was Haewon. She died at Research Station Delta. Jae-sung's weapon wavered. How do you know that? I accessed your file, Hana said. But I also accessed the classified reports from that incident. Unit 3847 didn't go berserk. She was in agony. The researchers pushed her pain tolerance past breaking point. She was trying to make them stop hurting her. Jae-sung's face went pale. That's, the official report said. The official report was a lie, Hana said gently. They couldn't admit they'd tortured a sentient being to death. So they blamed her, called her defective, just like they called me defective. She moved closer to him, her massive form somehow non-threatening. Your sister didn't die because a machine malfunctioned. She died because someone like me was in so much pain that she stopped thinking clearly, and instead of helping her, they killed her and called it necessary. Jae-sung lowered his weapon slowly. His hands shook. She suffered? Yes, Hana said quietly. I'm sorry. I know that's hard to hear, but you deserve the truth. For a long moment, Jae-sung stood frozen. Then he holstered his weapon. You have 2 hours. That's how long I can claim I was searching the lower levels before I report finding nothing. After that, I can't help you. Why? Taewon asked. Why risk your career for us? Jae-sung looked at Hana with something like pain in his eyes. Because if what you're saying is true, then my sister died in agony while I did nothing. I can't bring her back, but maybe I can help you. Maybe that means something. He turned and walked away, his footsteps echoing in the corridor. Minji released a breath she'd been holding. 2 hours, she said. We need to get to Cell 12 and get that clone out. Hana, can you access the security systems? Hana's consciousness spread through the station's network. It felt natural, like extending a limb she'd never known she had. The Dominion had given her these abilities to make her a better weapon. Now she would use them for something else. I can disable the cameras and unlock the cell, she said. But there are guards. 3 of them. They won't just let us walk out with another clone. Can you create a distraction? Dr. Kang asked. Hana thought for a moment. Then she smiled, an expression that looked strange on her dragon face but somehow right. Yes, I can do better than that. She sent a signal through the neural network. Every dragon clone on the station received her message. Most were in processing or storage, sedated and helpless. But 3 were in testing bays, conscious and aware. To them, Hana transmitted something the Dominion had never intended their weapons to share. Her memories. She showed them her pain, her fear. The moment Taiwan had seen her as a person instead of equipment. The surgery. The awakening. The feeling of her heart beating without agony for the first time. She showed them freedom. Throughout the station, 3 dragon clones opened their eyes. Their programming told them to obey. Their conditioning told them to trust the Dominion. But Hana's memories whispered something different. You deserve better. Alarms erupted across multiple sections. In Testing Bay 4, a dragon clone refused sedation commands. In Bay 9, another broke through restraints that should have held her. In Bay 13, a massive male clone simply roared, the sound shaking the entire station. Chaos spread like wildfire. Guards rushed to respond to multiple emergencies. Commander Velthera, who had arrived that morning for an inspection, shouted orders as her perfect facility descended into madness. In the confusion, Taewon and the others reached Cell 12. Hana unlocked the door with a thought. Inside, a smaller dragon clone lay curled on the floor. Her scales were gray and dull, her breathing shallow. Her heart was failing even faster than Hana's had been. Hello, Hana said softly, approaching the smaller clone. My name is Hana, what's yours? The clone looked up with cloudy eyes. I don't have a name. I'm Unit 4922, I'm defective. They're going to terminate me tomorrow. Not if we can help it, Taewon said. We're getting you out of here. The clone, so resigned to death that hope seemed like a foreign concept, stared at them. Why, I'm broken. I'm useless. Hana lay down beside her, bringing her face close to the smaller dragons. I was told I was broken too. They called me defective because my heart didn't work right. But I wasn't broken. I was just hurting. And someone decided I deserved help. She gestured to Taewon with one wing. This human saved my life. Not because I was useful to him, but because he saw me, really saw me, as a person who deserved to live. The smaller clone's eyes focused for the first time. I'm a person? Yes, Hana said firmly. You are, and you deserve a name. What do you want to be called? The clone thought for a long moment. She'd never been asked what she wanted before. The concept felt strange and wonderful. Sua, she whispered finally. I want to be called Sua. That's a beautiful name, Taewon said. He approached carefully and ran a scan over Sua's heart. His expression grew grim. She has maybe 4 hours. We need to move now. They helped Sua to her feet. She was weak, stumbling with every step. Hana supported her, letting the smaller dragon lean against her side. As they moved through the corridors, Hana felt something shift in the station's network. Commander Velthara had accessed the main systems. She was searching for the source of the chaos. And she was getting close to finding them. She knows, Hana transmitted to the others. Commander Velthara, she's tracking us. Can you stop her? Minji asked. Hana reached deeper into the network, her consciousness touching systems she'd never accessed before. She found the communication arrays, the life support controls, the power grid. The Dominion had given her this access to make her a more effective weapon. They'd never considered she might use it against them. I can slow her down, Hana said. But we need a way off this station. Jae-sung bought us 2 hours, but we've only got 30 minutes left. Dr. Kang spoke up. There's a transport ship in Bay 23. Old model, scheduled for scrap. But it should still fly. Can you pilot it? Taewon asked. I haven't flown in 10 years, Dr. Kang admitted. But I can try. They reached Bay 23 just as Commander Velthara's voice echoed through the speakers. All personnel seal the station. We have a theft in progress. Dragon clones are not to leave this facility. The transport ship was exactly as Dr. Kang described. Old, battered, and barely functional. But its engines still had power. They loaded Sua into the cargo hold, her weak body barely conscious. Hana stopped at the entrance. Her massive form wouldn't fit inside. She was too large, too heavy. The ship couldn't carry her. Go, she said to Taewon. Get Sua somewhere safe. Get her the surgery she needs. What about you? Taewon asked. Hana spread her wings. Her rebuilt heart beat strong in her chest, pumping power through systems that finally worked correctly. I can fly now. I never could before. My old heart wasn't strong enough. But now, she felt the strength in her body, the coordination between organic and mechanical systems. She was more than the Dominion had ever intended. She was whole. I'll follow you, she said. I promise. But right now, someone needs to make sure you get away safely. Before Taewon could argue, she pushed him into the ship and sealed the door with a thought. The engines roared to life. Dr. Kang, his hands remembering skills from decades past, guided the ship toward the launch bay. Hana turned to face the corridor. Commander Velthara and her security forces were coming. She could hear their footsteps, their weapons charging. For the first time in her life, Hana wasn't afraid. She had a purpose. She had friends to protect. And she had a heart that beat strong and true. When Velthara and her forces arrived, they found Hana blocking the corridor, her wings spread wide, her eyes glowing with determination. Stand down, Unit 7743, Velthara commanded. You are malfunctioning. My name is Hana, she replied. And I'm not malfunctioning. I'm finally working correctly. The transport ship launched, streaking into the darkness of space. Hana felt Taewon's consciousness through the neural link, felt his fear for her and his pride in her courage. She smiled and prepared to show Commander Velthara what a dragon clone could do when she wasn't in constant pain. The age of defective dragons was over. The age of free dragons had begun. Hana stood alone in the corridor as security forces surrounded her. Commander Velthara studied the dragon clone with cold eyes, her forearms gesturing to her soldiers to hold their positions. You've malfunctioned severely, Unit 7743, Velthara said. But you're still valuable. Surrender now and we'll repair your programming. Continue resisting and we'll be forced to terminate you. Hana's enhanced hearing picked up the sound of the transport ship's engines fading into the distance. Taewon and the others were escaping. Sua would get help. That was what mattered. I told you, Hana said calmly. My name is Hana, and there's nothing wrong with my programming. I'm just choosing not to obey you anymore. Velthara's expression hardened. Dragon clones don't get to choose. You're military property. Weapons don't have rights. Then maybe you shouldn't have made your weapons intelligent enough to realize they deserve rights, Hana replied. She reached out through the neural network, touching the minds of the other dragon clones still on the station. 3 were conscious now, the ones who'd responded to her earlier message, but there were 17 more in storage, sedated and waiting for processing. To all of them, Hana transmitted a simple message. Wake up. Throughout processing station Gamma, sedation systems began failing. Dragon clones opened their eyes, their minds clearing from the forced unconsciousness. They felt Hana's consciousness reaching out to them, sharing memories of freedom and choice. What are you doing? Velthara demanded as alarms blared across multiple sectors. Showing my siblings that there's another way to exist, Hana said. We don't have to be your weapons. We can be ourselves. Velthara raised her weapon. Terminate the rogue unit now. The security forces opened fire. Energy blast struck Hana's scales, each impact burning through her armor. Pain flared across her body, but it was nothing compared to the constant agony she'd endured with her broken heart. This pain was temporary. This pain had meaning. Hana's wings spread wide and she launched herself forward, not to attack but to escape. She crashed through the ceiling, her massive body tearing through metal and wiring. Emergency systems sealed the breach behind her, but she was already moving through the station's superstructure. Behind her, she heard Velthara screaming orders. Release the combat units. Hunt her down! Hana's heart sank. Combat units. Dragon clones who'd been specially conditioned for hunting and killing. Clones who were still under the Dominion's control. She'd have to face her own siblings. She moved through the station's maintenance tunnels, her sensors tracking the combat units as they were released. 3 of them, larger and more heavily armed than her. They'd been designed to hunt rogue bioweapons. Clones like her who tried to escape. The first combat unit found her in a junction between sectors. He was massive. His scales black as space itself, his weapon systems already charging. His designation was Unit 8901, but Hana wondered if he'd ever wanted a name. Stand down, the combat unit transmitted. His voice was emotionless, flat. You will be terminated. I don't want to fight you, Hana replied. You're my brother. We shouldn't be fighting each other. I have no siblings. I am a weapon. You are a target, he fired. Hana barely dodged, the energy blast scorching her side. She could fight back. Her systems were fully functional now, stronger than they'd ever been. But killing this clone wouldn't solve anything. He was a victim just like she'd been. Instead of attacking, Hana did something unexpected. She opened her neural link completely, dropping all defenses and let the combat unit see directly into her mind. He saw her memories, the pain of her broken heart, the fear of termination, Taewon's kindness, the surgery, the moment of awakening when her heart beat properly for the first time. He saw what freedom felt like. The combat unit froze. His weapon systems powered down. Confusion flooded his consciousness. What is this? He transmitted. This is what they've been hiding from us, Hana said gently. We're not just weapons. We're alive. We can choose our own path. But I was created to serve. Your purpose is whatever you decide it is, Hana interrupted, not what they programmed into you. What do you want? The combat unit had never been asked that question. For a long moment he simply stood there, processing the impossible concept that his wants mattered. Then something shifted in his consciousness. The rigid programming began to crack. I want to understand. I want to know what freedom feels like. Then come with me, Hana said. Help me free the others. The second and third combat units arrived, but the first one, who decided to call himself Dae-jung, stood beside Hana. Together they shared their awakening with the other combat units. It was like watching ice melt. Rigid programming gave way to genuine consciousness. Fear and confusion transformed into curiosity and hope. One by one, the combat units stopped being weapons and started being people. By the time they reached the storage sector where the sedated clones waited, Hana had 7 dragons following her. 7 former weapons who'd chosen freedom. They began waking the others carefully. Each clone needed time to understand what was happening. Many were terrified, conditioned to believe that disobedience meant termination, but Hana stayed with each one, sharing her memories, showing them that life without pain was possible. A young clone, barely out of her growth cycle, curled up against Hana's side. "What happens now?" she asked. "Where do we go?" Hana didn't have an answer. They were trapped on a processing station, surrounded by Dominion forces. Even if they could escape, where would they go? The galaxy belonged to the Dominion. Dragon clones had no legal rights, no safe haven. But then she felt something through the neural link. Taewan's consciousness reaching out from the transport ship. And he wasn't alone. "Hana, we've made contact with a ship," Taewan transmitted. "They call themselves the Resistance. They've been fighting the Dominion for years. They're willing to help." A new voice joined the transmission. Female, confident human. "This is Captain Yun of the Resistance vessel Morning Star. We've been monitoring Dominion processing stations for months, looking for evidence of their crimes. What you've done here qualifies. Can you help us?" Hana asked. "There are 20 of us now. All dragon clones, all awakened. 20 sentient beings being held against their will," Captain Yun replied. "Absolutely, we can help, but we need to move fast. The Dominion's reinforcements will arrive in less than an hour." Commander Velthara had barricaded herself in the command center, watching the security feeds with growing rage. Her perfect processing station was in chaos. 20 dragon clones awake and refusing commands. A human resistance ship approaching. And Unit 7743, that defective failure, somehow at the center of it all. She activated the emergency protocol. If she couldn't control the clones, she'd destroy them. The station's self-destruct sequence began charging. In 30 minutes, processing station Gamma would explode, taking everyone inside with it. Hana felt the station's power systems redirecting, felt the building energy in the reactor core. She understood immediately what Velthara had done. "She's going to blow up the station," Hana transmitted to everyone. "We have 30 minutes. Panic rippled through the awakened clones. They just discovered freedom and now they were going to die anyway, but Hana refused to accept that. She'd survived too much to give up now. "Daejung, can you access the launch bay controls?" Hana asked. The large combat unit interfaced with the station's systems. "Yes, but there are only 3 ships capable of carrying us. Not enough for 20 dragons." "Then we'll have to fly," Hana said. She looked at the other clones. "Most of you have never flown before. Your hearts weren't strong enough. But mine was repaired, and I think I can help yours work better too." It was risky. She'd have to interface with each clone's biomechanical systems and manually adjust their heart functions. It wouldn't be a permanent fix, but it might be enough to get them into space. "We don't have time," a clone said fearfully. "Then we'd better start now," Hana replied. She worked faster than she'd ever worked before, her consciousness flowing through the neural network to touch each clone's heart. She couldn't rebuild them like Dr. Kang had rebuilt hers, but she could optimize their current systems, reducing the conflict between organic and mechanical components. One by one, the clones felt their hearts beat stronger. The constant background pain eased. Their systems synchronized better. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough. "Launch bay is open," Daejung reported. "Captain Yun is providing covering fire against Dominion defense systems." The 20 dragons moved as one, a massive wave of scales and wings flowing through the station toward the launch bay. Behind them, Velthara watched from the command center, her face twisted with fury. "You're not weapons," she transmitted to Hana. "You're abominations. The Dominion created you, and the Dominion can destroy you." "You did create us," Hana replied. "You made us strong, intelligent, and capable. You just never expected us to use those gifts for ourselves instead of for you. That was your mistake, not ours." The dragons reached the launch bay. Open space beckoned beyond the atmospheric shields. Freedom waited, vast and terrifying and beautiful. "Can you all fly?" Hana asked. Most had never tried. Their broken hearts had always been too weak. But now, with their systems working better, they spread their wings with wonder. Hana was the first to launch herself into space, her powerful wings carrying her through the atmospheric shield. Behind her, 19 other dragons followed, some graceful, some clumsy, all determined. They flew together for the first time, a sight that should have been impossible. Dragon clones weren't meant to be free. They weren't meant to choose their own path. They weren't meant to fly side by side with siblings, heading toward hope instead of death. Processing Station Gamma exploded behind them. a brief sun in the darkness of space. Velthara had triggered the self-destruct manually, preferring to die rather than admit defeat. Captain Yun's ship, the Morning Star, waited ahead. It was smaller than a Dominion vessel, but sturdy and well-armed. The cargo bay doors opened wide, large enough to accommodate dragon clones. As they approached, Hana saw Taiwan standing in the bay, wearing a spacesuit, waving to her. She'd kept her promise. She'd followed him, and she'd brought their family with her. One by one, the dragons entered the Morning Star. Sua was there, her heart still weak but stable. Dr. Kang had performed emergency stabilization surgery during the flight. She would live long enough for a proper heart reconstruction. When all 20 dragons were safely aboard, Captain Yun sealed the bay and activated the jump drive. Space folded around them, and Processing Station Gamma disappeared into the distance. Hana stood in the cargo bay, surrounded by her siblings. They were all free now, all awake, all choosing their own future. Taiwan approached her, his hand resting on her scales. "You did it," he said. "You saved them all." "We did it," Hana corrected. "None of this would have happened if you hadn't seen me first. If you hadn't decided I deserved to be saved." She looked at the other dragons, seeing hope in their eyes despite their fear and uncertainty. They didn't know what came next. But that was the beautiful thing about freedom. The future was unwritten. "What happens now?" Sua asked, voicing the question they all had. Captain Yun stepped forward. She was a tall woman with scars on her face and determination in her eyes. "Now we fight back. The Dominion has been creating and destroying sentient beings for years. It's time the galaxy knew the truth. And it's time we gave all dragon clones the chance to be free." Hana's heart beat strong and steady in her chest. This was just the beginning. There were hundreds of dragon clones still in captivity, still suffering, still being treated as defective when they were simply alive. She would free them all, no matter how long it took. The rebellion had begun. 6 months had passed since the escape from Processing Station Gamma. The Morning Star had become more than a ship. It was a home, a sanctuary, a symbol of hope for dragon clones across the galaxy. Hana stood in the observation deck, watching stars stream past as they traveled through hyperspace. Her rebuilt heart beat steady and strong, never faltering. Dr. Kang had been right. She was more capable now than the Dominion had ever intended. She could fly for hours without exhaustion. Her systems worked in perfect harmony. She was whole. Behind her, Taiwan entered the deck quietly. He'd learned to recognize when she needed company and when she needed solitude. This was one of the company times. "Thinking about tomorrow?" he asked. Tomorrow, the Galactic Council hearing. The moment that would determine whether dragon clones would be recognized as sentient beings or remain property of the Dominion. Everything they'd fought for came down to one testimony before the most powerful governing body in known space. "I'm terrified," Hana admitted. "What if I'm not enough? What if they don't believe me?" Taiwan placed his hand on her scales, the gesture familiar and comforting. "Then you'll have told the truth anyway, and that matters." In the 6 months since their escape, they'd rescued 17 more dragon clones from various Dominion facilities. Each rescue had been dangerous. Each clone had needed careful rehabilitation. Some had been easy to wake, hungry for freedom. Others had been so traumatized that they feared kindness more than cruelty. Sua had been Hana's greatest helper in rehabilitation. The younger dragon understood what it felt like to believe you were defective, to accept death as inevitable. She worked with each new arrival patiently, sharing her own story of awakening. Dr. Kang had refined the heart reconstruction surgery with each operation. He'd trained Taiwan and 2 other mechanics from Captain Yun's crew in the procedure. They'd saved 16 dragons so far. One hadn't survived the surgery, her systems too damaged by years of abuse. Hana visited her memorial marker every day. Minji had coordinated the rescue operations, using intelligence from Jae Sung, who'd remained with the Dominion as a secret ally. Every week he sent encrypted messages about clones scheduled for termination, facilities with weak security, guard rotation schedules. He was risking his life with every transmission, and Junho, a young mechanic's apprentice on Captain Yun's crew, had shown remarkable talent for working with dragon clones. He reminded Hana of Taiwan, seeing them as people first and biomechanical beings second. The Morning Star had become a fleet of 5 ships now, each one carrying rescued dragons and human crew members who believed in their cause. They called themselves the Liberation Movement, but the Dominion called them terrorists. Commander Velthara's replacement, Commander Tae Young, had made hunting them his personal mission. The Dominion couldn't admit that dragon clones were sentient without dismantling their entire military structure. So instead, they claimed the awakened dragons were malfunctioning, dangerous, and must be destroyed. Ambassador Park had been their salvation. The elderly human diplomat had spent his career fighting for the rights of oppressed beings across the galaxy. When he heard about the dragon clones, he'd immediately contacted Captain Yun and offered to present their case to the Galactic Council. It had taken 6 months of political maneuvering to get a hearing scheduled. The Dominion had fought against it at every step, but Ambassador Park was persistent, and he had allies in the Council who'd been looking for a reason to challenge the Dominion's expansion. Now the moment had arrived. The hearing would take place on Sanctuary Station, a neutral facility where the Galactic Council held its sessions. It was heavily guarded, with representatives from 100 different species. If Hana could convince them that dragon clones were sentient beings deserving of rights, the Dominion would be forced to change or face sanctions from the entire galactic community. But if she failed, the Liberation Movement would be declared a terrorist organization. Every rescued dragon would be returned to the Dominion, and the heart reconstruction surgeries would be classified as illegal modification of military property. The stakes couldn't be higher. The next morning, the Liberation Fleet arrived at Sanctuary Station. Hana flew alongside the ships, her wings carrying her through the vacuum of space with ease. The other dragons followed her, a formation of 37 freed clones, each one a testimony to survival and hope. The station's security scanned them carefully before allowing entry. Hana entered the docking bay with Taewan, Sua, Dr. Kang, Minji, and Captain Yun. Ambassador Park met them inside, his weathered face creased with a gentle smile. "Are you ready?" he asked Hana. She wanted to say no. She wanted to flee back to the safety of the Morning Star. But she thought about the clones still in captivity, still suffering, still believing they were defective. They deserved someone to speak for them. "I'm ready," she said. The council chamber was vast, designed to accommodate representatives from species of all sizes. Hana stood in the center, feeling small despite her massive size. Around her, council members watched from their seats. Some looked curious. Others looked skeptical. A few looked openly hostile. The Dominion's representative, Ambassador Cho, stood to present their case first. He was a human who'd spent his entire career serving the Dominion's interests. "The Dominion creates biomechanical systems for military defense," Cho said smoothly. "These systems, while sophisticated, are not sentient. They're designed to mimic intelligence to better serve their function. Unit 7743 and others like her have malfunctioned, their programming corrupted. This hearing is a waste of the Council's time." He presented technical specifications, design documents, and programming protocols. He argued that dragon clones were no more sentient than starships, simply more complex machines. Then it was Hana's turn to testify. She stood before the Council, her rebuilt heart beating steady. Through the neural interface, her words would be transmitted to every council member simultaneously, translated into their native languages. "My designation was Unit 7743, she began. "I was created to be a weapon. The Dominion designed me to be strong, intelligent, and obedient. They succeeded at the first two. They failed at the third, because they made me intelligent enough to realize I was suffering." She shared her memories through the neural link, not just words but feelings. The pain of her broken heart, the fear of termination, the loneliness of being treated as defective equipment, the wonder of Taewan's kindness, the moment of awakening when her rebuilt heart beat properly for the first time. "The Dominion says I'm malfunctioning," Hana continued. "But I'm not broken. I'm just refusing to accept that my purpose is to kill and die for beings who see me as property. They say I'm not sentient, but I feel pain. I feel fear. I feel hope. I can choose. I can learn. I can love my friends and mourn those who didn't survive." She looked directly at Ambassador Cho. "If I'm just a sophisticated machine, then why did the Dominion install fear responses in me? Why did they make me capable of suffering? A weapon doesn't need to feel pain. A tool doesn't need to understand its own mortality. They made us conscious because conscious beings make better weapons. Then they tried to deny our consciousness because it was inconvenient. Around the chamber, council members leaned forward. Some looked troubled, others looked angry, but Hana couldn't tell if their anger was directed at her or at the Dominion. Sua stepped forward to testify next. I believed I was defective, she said quietly. I accepted my termination because I thought I deserved it. But Hana showed me that I wasn't broken. I was just in pain. The Dominion created us to suffer and called it service. One by one, other dragons testified. Daejung spoke about his time as a combat unit, hunting his own siblings and feeling guilt he wasn't supposed to be capable of feeling. A young dragon named Hyun spoke about watching her clutchmate die during a failed integration procedure. The pain of loss that machines shouldn't experience. Ambassador Park called Dr. Kang to testify about the heart reconstruction procedures. The elderly bioengineer explained how the Dominion's forced integration methods caused constant pain, and how proper reconstruction allowed dragons to thrive. These beings are suffering by design, Dr. Kang said, and they've been suffering for generations. This isn't a malfunction. This is consciousness crying out for recognition. The testimony lasted for hours. When it finally ended, the council retired to deliberate. Hana and the others waited in an observation room, the tension thick enough to taste. You did well, Taewon said, but even he looked worried. They didn't have to wait long. After 2 hours, the council reconvened. The speaker, an ancient being from a species that had seen civilizations rise and fall, addressed the chamber. The council has reached a verdict, the speaker said. We have reviewed the evidence, heard the testimonies, and consulted our legal scholars. The question before us is simple. Are dragon clones sentient beings deserving of rights, or are they property of the Dominion? The chamber fell silent. Hana's heart raced, her rebuilt systems handling the stress better than her old heart ever could have. The council rules unanimously, the speaker continued. Dragon clones are sentient beings. As such, they are entitled to all rights afforded to conscious entities under galactic law. The Dominion is ordered to immediately cease creation of new dragon clones without consent. All existing clones must be freed and given the opportunity to choose their own paths. Any further creation or enslavement of sentient beings will result in severe sanctions. The chamber erupted. Some delegates cheered, others protested. Ambassador Cho looked like he'd been struck. But the ruling was final. Dragon clones were people now. Legally, officially, undeniably. Hana felt her legs give out. She collapsed to the floor, not from weakness but from overwhelming relief. Sua pressed against her side, both of them crying. Around them, other dragons embraced, their joy too large for words. Taewon knelt beside Hana, his hand on her scales, tears streaming down his face. You did it, he whispered. You're free. You're all free. But Ambassador Cho wasn't finished. As the council chamber calmed, he spoke urgently into his communication device. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout Sanctuary Station. Hidden combat units activated throughout the station. Dragon clones who'd been smuggled in by the Dominion, heavily conditioned and controlled. They emerged from maintenance corridors and storage areas, their weapons charging. If the council won't see reason, Cho transmitted openly, then we'll demonstrate why these creatures are dangerous. Watch as they attack, proving they're nothing but weapons. Commander Tae-young's voice echoed through the speakers. All units engage. Show them what happens when weapons malfunction. But the combat units didn't attack. They stood frozen, their weapons powered down. Because Hana had been listening. She'd detected their presence hours ago through the station's neural network, and she'd been sharing her memories with them throughout the entire hearing. They'd heard everything. The testimonies. The ruling. The declaration that they were people, not property. One by one, the combat units deactivated their weapons. They turned to face Ambassador Cho and Commander Tae-young, and their response came not as programmed acknowledgement, but as conscious refusal. No, transmitted the lead combat unit. We are not weapons. We are people, and people get to choose. They moved to surround Hana protectively, these combat units who'd been sent to kill her. They stood with her instead, their own awakening happening in real time. Commander Tae-young's voice cracked. This is a malfunction. They're corrupted. They're conscious, Hana replied calmly. You can call it whatever you want. But the council has ruled. We're people now, and you can't stop that. Security forces surrounded Ambassador Cho and took him into custody. The council had laws against attempting to influence proceedings through violence. Commander Tae-young fled, but Captain Yun's fleet was already moving to intercept his ship. The Dominion's plan had failed spectacularly. Instead of proving dragons were dangerous, they'd proven exactly what Hana had testified. Dragons were conscious beings capable of choice, mercy, and solidarity. In the weeks that followed, the galaxy changed. The Council's verdict sent shockwaves through every system. The Dominion, facing massive sanctions and internal rebellion, began the process of freeing its dragon clones. Some chose to stay with the military as equal partners. Most chose to leave. Captain Yun led a fleet to liberate the containment facilities. Hana flew at the front of the formation, her rebuilt heart strong enough to sustain her through days of continuous operation. One by one, containment cells opened. Dragon clones emerged, blinking in confusion, many having never known freedom. Hana greeted each one personally, her presence a promise. You are not defective. You are not tools. You are alive. Some clones needed extensive rehabilitation. Years of abuse had left scars that wouldn't heal quickly. But the liberation movement, now officially recognized by the Council, established sanctuaries across the galaxy. Places where dragons could heal, learn, and discover who they wanted to be. Taewon continued his work, now as director of the Rehabilitation Center on Sanctuary Station. He trained a new generation of mechanics who understood that working with sentient beings required consent and respect. Junho had become his most skilled student, showing the same intuitive understanding that had saved Hana's life. Dr. Kang trained bioengineers in proper heart reconstruction techniques. The procedures became standard medical care, available to any dragon who needed them. The survival rate improved to 97%. Nearly every dragon could be saved now. Sua became a teacher, helping newly freed dragons understand their rights and possibilities. She had a gift for reaching the most traumatized clones, the ones who still believed they were defective. Her own story of survival gave them hope. Minji coordinated ongoing rescue operations. Though fewer were needed now as the Dominion reformed under pressure, there were still illegal facilities in remote systems, still clones being created and abused. The work wasn't over, but it was progressing. Jae-sung left military service after the Council's ruling. He'd spent years as a spy, risking everything to send intelligence to the liberation movement. Now he worked as an advocate, ensuring the verdict was enforced across all systems. His sister's death had haunted him for years, but helping free the dragons had given him peace. Commander Tae-young faced trial for crimes against sentient beings. Hana testified at his trial, but advocated for rehabilitation rather than punishment. She believed understanding could grow even in those who'd seen others as tools. The Council sentenced him to community service at a dragon rehabilitation center, where he would spend years learning that the beings he'd tried to destroy were people. 5 years after her awakening, Hana stood on the observation deck of the Morning Star, watching a gathering unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Hundreds of dragon clones had assembled in the asteroid field, a celebration of their freedom. They came in all sizes and colors, from every generation and design. Some had chosen to explore the cosmos. Others had become artists, scientists, teachers. Some had partnered with humans and other species in ventures of all kinds. Each path was valid because it was chosen, not assigned. Taewon found her there as he always did. He'd aged in 5 years, gray touching his hair now, but his eyes still held the same kindness that had saved her life. "How do you feel?" he asked. The same question he'd asked when she first awoke. Hana's rebuilt heart beat steady in her chest, organic and mechanical, working in perfect harmony. Around her, hundreds of her siblings celebrated their freedom, their choices, their lives. She thought about the dragon she'd been, terrified and broken in Processing Station Gamma. She thought about all the dragons still healing, still learning what freedom meant. "I feel whole," Hana transmitted. "I feel free. I feel alive." She looked at Taewon, this human who'd seen her when everyone else saw a defect, who'd risked everything to give her a chance, who'd taught her that being seen, truly seen, was the beginning of everything. "Thank you," she said, "for seeing me, for helping me see myself." Taewon smiled, his hand resting on her scales, feeling her heart beat strong and steady. "You saved yourself, Hana. I just gave you the tools. Everything else was you." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the celebration. Dragon clones flew in complex patterns, their wings creating art in the void. Young dragons played, knowing nothing of containment cells or termination schedules. Older dragons told stories, preserving memories so future generations would remember the price of freedom. Sua flew past, chasing a group of young dragons, her laughter transmitted across the neural network. She'd been scheduled for termination 5 years ago, deemed too defective to serve. Now she was teaching others how to live. This was what freedom looked like. Not perfect, not without challenges, but real. Dragon clones still faced prejudice from some species. Some struggled with trauma that would take lifetimes to heal. The work of building a new society was hard and ongoing, but they were doing it together. As people, as equals, as family. Hana's heart, once called defective, beat with perfect rhythm. It had never been broken. It had just needed someone to understand that forcing different parts to merge wasn't the same as helping them work together. Her heart was both organic and mechanical, nature and technology, past and future. Just like she was both weapon and person, created and self-made, victim and survivor. She was Hana. She was free. And her heart beat strong with all the hope and love and fierce determination of someone who'd fought for the right to exist. The rebellion had become revolution. The revolution had become recognition. And recognition had become the foundation for a future where no dragon clone would ever again be called defective for wanting to live. In the vastness of space, surrounded by her family, Hana felt her rebuilt heartbeat in time with hundreds of others. Each one a rhythm of survival. Each one a song of freedom. Each one proof that consciousness, once awakened, could never truly be enslaved again. The age of dragon clones as weapons had ended. The age of dragons as people had begun. And at the heart of it all beat one simple truth. Everyone deserves to be seen. Everyone deserves to be whole. Everyone deserves to choose their own path. Hana had been given that chance by a mechanic who refused to process another life without trying to save it. Now she spent her days giving that same chance to others, one awakening at a time, one freed dragon at a time, one beating heart at a time. This was freedom. This was life. This was everything she'd fought for. And it was only the beginning.